Okay, so you're not wrong in saying that hawker food is part of our heritage, because it is. Okay, hawker food came into the picture more than anything else to feed the working public. That was what it was there now. I mean, it still feeds the working public, right? Of course, on Saturdays and Sundays, it feeds families. So when I say Singapore heritage food, what I actually mean is that the different ethnicities that have evolved in Singapore, and the food that they cook. So basically, the 5 main ethnicities: Chinese, Malay, Indian, Peranakan, and Eurasian. And of course, in the last 15 to 20 years, you have a lot more immigrants that have come in. You have Thais, you have Vietnamese, you have Filipinos, you have Koreans, you even have Japanese. But the main bulk of it is still Chinese, Malay, Indian, Peranakan, Eurasian. So that's, when I talk about heritage cuisine, that's what I speak about. I speak about Chinese. And when you talk about Chinese, it's not Chinese. There's so many different dialects as well, right? So you have Hakka, you have Teochew, you have Hainanese, you have Cantonese, you have Hokkien. Same with Malays. You know, a lot of people think Malay is Malay. No, Malay is not Malay. You have Malays that came from the Middle Eastern. I mean, a classic example is the hawker dish that's called kacang pul. It's actually full madame, which came from the Middle East to this part of the world, right? So even Peranakan, a lot of people think Peranakan is only one distinct Peranakan ethnicity. No.
I think it's also because in the media itself, it was being depicted that, the little Nonya, you have that one.
That actually, I feel, had good and bad repercussions for Peranakan, for the Peranakans. Okay, if you go to it's very difficult. I want to say true Peranakan. What is a true Peranakan, right? So, but most Peranakans, which came from Malacca, I would say tend to not speak Mandarin. Okay? They spoke a patois of Malay, Hokkien, and even English, but more Malay and Hokkien. Yeah, very distinct Malay with Hokkien words, and of course English. That, to me, when you say Peranakan, to me, okay, that is what I know of Peranakan. The Chinese Peranakans were there, but they came more from Indonesia and further up Malaysia. Okay, so you have the Hokkien Peranakans. These are the ones which spoke more, I would say, Malay and Hokkien. Then you have Teochew as well, right? So I've never met a Peranakan going back to a boy, a teenager, and then in perhaps my mid-30s, right, who spoke Mandarin until the little Nonya.
Because Peranakan to me is a culture of it being very rare.
Okay, it's more than it's okay. So when Peranakan is actually a very, very it's almost like it's more than a culture. It's actually, it involves a lot of things. When you say Peranakan, it's actually very diversified. Okay, because if you look at the Chinaware that they use, the furniture, the lighting in their homes, what they wear, the croissant, yes, it's Malay, but it's even a little bit more, I would say, sophisticated even, right? From gold to silver, right? And even the kebaya is very different from what the Malays would wear. It's just very different. Even the kasut manik, right? So it involves so many things, Unlike the other races, right? Like, even when you say, as an example, the Eurasians, yes, we have the Kristang, yes, we do wear certain costumes and things like that, but it is not as deep as the Peranakan culture. The Peranakan culture is even, perhaps maybe because of the Chinese side of things,
I am going to sound very ignorant here. Very, very ignorant, because I also sense like that is like a Javanese cow.
No, it's not Javanese, but it's what it's the Malay peranakans. They exist as well, same as the Indian peranakans, right? So you have Chinese, and then the different Chinese, the Indonesians, and then you go further north in Malaysia, even up to Penang, even up to Thailand, there are peranakans, and they all cook very differently.
What are the differences there?
I would say if you look at the Indonesian peranakans, right, the food is more Chinese than it is Malay. Okay, so it's almost like they want to distinct themselves from, okay, we are not, our food is not Malay, our food is very Chinese, but we are peranakans, right? And as you come to Singapore and you go to Malacca, you find that the food is more punchy, it's more pungent, it's more earthly. You know, you have sambal baklava. I mean, there's also some light things, but there's also things that are really, really pungent, rich, full of flavor. And as you go up north, you find that the flavors lighten a bit, and then it takes on a more acidic flavor, sourness, vinegar, which is common if you go to Thailand, you go to Terengganu, right? So I think what they have done, actually, they have embraced that culture over there, and they've added some of the elements which are peranakan to the dish. But when you talk about Jawi peranakan, it's a whole new, it's not something that not many people know. Okay, so you were talking about Malay, right? That's Jawi peranakan, so it's very different. So Chinese elements, I would say, not so much, but very different from how Malays would cook.
I'm touching a little bit of this news here because it come across in my head about these two guys open a nasi lemak restaurant. And it got a bit of backlash when it comes to, because they are saying it's peranakan nasi lemak.
Okay.
So at least online.
Okay.
And I myself, I didn't know how diverse it is when it comes to Peranakan culture, because the Peranakan culture is, what I have in mind is the Little Nyonya,
which is not. Which really is not. I mean, yes, I would say that they did get some help from someone of authority. Peter Wee was the one that actually did most of the consultancy for the Little Nyonya. They went to him for help. But then they didn't actually, I would say at the end of the day, they did whatever they wanted to when it came to filming and things like that, okay? But the essence, I think, of Peranakan cuisine, again, if you say nasi lemak as an example, I would tell you now that the Jawi Peranakans, the Chiti Peranakans, the Peranakans in the northern part of Malaysia, the Peranakans in Singapore and Malacca, they would cook their nasi lemak differently. So you cannot say Peranakan nasi lemak because it does not exist, right? From different homes will cook the nasi lemak differently. But if you come from the same community of Peranakans, like for example, if you came, let's say, from Malacca, okay, I would say then you would probably would have a much more richer nasi lemak than a lighter nasi lemak. Meaning, your nasi lemak would be steamed, not just once, twice, even 3 times, and fresh coconut milk would be used. And usually your fish would be doused, or it would be marinated in tamarind, because that cuts the richness of the rice, the lemak, right? And then sambal, usually it's not just sambal, it's prawn sambal. Okay? Yeah? Other nasi lemak is just sambal. This is prawn sambal. So it's kind of like an elevated nasi lemak. And then it also has vegetables in the form of sambal kangkong, and it's lemak also. Yeah. So you see, there's no fried fish, there's no chicken. It does not exist. It does not exist. There's fish. Sometimes there's otak, which they make. There's no, so to speak, ikan bilis. Okay. It is not there. There's no chicken. So it's more a seafood it's more seafood orientated than in terms of protein, it's more seafood.
So that's
peranakan.
That's peranakan.
Yeah. So when I cook a peranakan nasi lemak, that's how I would do it. I would cook your rice, and then I would serve prawn sambal, right? And then I would serve fish, but I kind of marinated in tamarind, and then I would do kangkong masak lemak. That is my peranakan nasi lemak.
Because I read through I do a little bit of research when it comes to your idea of like doing up. You have to be prepped up for tradition first before changing what's in there to suit to suit. And you talk about the heritage food as an evolving thing, right?
Yeah.
So because from what I understand, I tried to learn cooking from my mom. It's not a success. So, this is what I've learned about the Asian food culture, where everything is as much as you like. Is it?
Okay. Yes and no. Okay. Why you have to evolve is because your ingredients that you used to use are no longer available. Okay. The other reason is that the recipes that you have or you used to have are no longer there. So you kind of cook from memory. If you can understand what I'm saying, I'll give you a classic example. Let's say I used to eat a certain dish that my grandmother used to cook, right? But she doesn't have a recipe.
Okay.
Right? So my memory is watching her cook and my taste memory. I think anybody that wants to cook, must have very good taste memory. That's a very important element in cooking. If you don't have taste memory, how are you going to replicate what is supposed to be the actual dish? You will never be able to replicate it. Okay, so I think these are the things that are important. But when you talk about evolving, I think you have to evolve. You cannot not evolve. But what's important is that you have to remember how the dish was done originally, right? It could be a recipe from your granddad, from your grandma, from your aunt, from your mother. It can be from anybody. But you have to know how to do that first, right? And then eventually you can change it accordingly. There are some ingredients today that we cannot get. We just can't get it because we become very urbanized, and a lot of the ingredients that we used to go and forage ourselves, you can't do that anymore.
Is there ingredients that you wish that you can get, or that isn't there anymore?
Of course, all the time, but you can't get it anymore because these were herbs that actually grow wild. Okay, like pucuk pakis, right? Or even gotu kola. Gotu kola, you still can get. Pennyworth, you can go to the market and get. Sayur bremi, you can't get it anymore. But it was something they used to, we used to get quite often. So I would say, that's one frustration, that you can't get the ingredients. The other thing is like, a classic example I would say is a dish like tohe. So tohe is basically a peranakan dish where you actually have to execute two different things. You have to make rago and you have to make ang chao, right? So it's weird because ang chao is not peranakan.
Okay.
Yeah. But you have to make it. So after you make the ang chao, you take the rago and you mix it together. And then you have to wait at least about a week. So the ang chao takes at least about 3 weeks to be fermented, and then your rago maybe about 5 days. And then you mix it together, and then you wait for about a week. Then you can cook tohe. Now, which peranakan out there you think knows how to do ang chao?
It takes very...
No, but it's not. It is not something that they know how to do. Because it's not a execution that comes from their ethnicity, right? Grago, yes, the Peranakans can do because that's something they do all the time. But Ang Chao, no one knows. So, you think about it, how did it come into the picture? There's probably somebody that gave the Ang Chao to a Peranakan and he says, what am I going to do with this? Let's try. I don't know. Nobody knows, right? But the only logical explanation is somebody saw the Ang Chao, took the Grago and says, look, what if I mix this together, right? And then decided, okay, let's try and cook it. And today, it's a dish that not many people know how to execute because, as I say, not many people know how to make Ang Chao. And even if they knew how to make Ang Chao, nobody has the recipe or, the right recipe for it.
So it's pretty much like it's a lost.
Yeah. So similarly with all the other ethnicities, if you look at Malay, if you look at the Malay culture, if you look at the Eurasian culture, even the Indian culture, there are a lot of things that are actually forgotten, that are lost, A classic Eurasian dish, which actually originated from Goa, is kuti pie, right?
Okay.
Kuti pie, which is basically the fetus of the goat. And you take the fetus of the goat and you cook it, right? Where are you going to get the fetus of the goat today? You can't. You have to kill a goat that has got a fetus in her, and then you take the fetus and then it's impossible to try and get that done today. So that's one of the reasons why we lose all these things. And then the other thing is that some of the dishes, they take a very long time to execute. Some of them take 2 days. Some of them takes even 3 days to execute a dish like that. So people forget. And I also believe that today's generation, they also feel that a lot of the food that we used to eat in the past were very rich, to the extent of they feel that it's unhealthy.
Okay.
Yeah. But then again, they do not actually understand that we also ate healthy. A lot of things that we ate. For example, there's a Malay dish which is called sayur rampai. So sayur rampai basically is different types of herbs. And these herbs are good for your kidney, are good for your blood, to cleanse, and you eat it once a month or twice a month. So hence, it's prevention, right? Today, you get sick, you go and see the doctor, or you go and see the singsay and but in the past, we did it on a regular basis. Yeah? So, as much as people look at the older generation and says that we're unhealthy, but then again, we also ate a lot of healthy food. There was a balance.
I think it's also during our previous generations, because the amount of food they eat tends to, I'm not so sure whether lower as well.
We ate less. We didn't eat 3 meals a day. We ate 2, sometimes only 1 meal a day. And we walked more than anything else, because who had a car not many people had a car in the 60s.
Yeah.
Right? Not many people had a car. Most of the time, when I went out with my grandfather, we walked, sometimes 6 miles. Well, I mean, it's kilometers now, right? So 8-10 kilometers, we walk. And after we reach our destination, I'll get rewarded with food. But you think about it, right? If you walk for 8-10 kilometers and then you eat, hey, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, So that was the difference that I think in the past that we had. Today, we tend to sit down a lot. We tend to laze, right? You ask us, yes, the exercise that we do, I think it's very different from the past. We go to the gym.
Oh, yeah.
We lift weights and things like that. But in the past, those were the things that we didn't do.
We have rice packs as
we carried things. We did a lot of gardening. These were the things that we used to do, but it's very different today, right? So if you talk about food wise in the past, I would say I know people today that can eat chicken rice every day.
Oh yeah.
That never happened in the past. So there was always vegetables. Okay, we didn't really eat a lot of green leafy vegetables in my home. We had a lot of, I would say, herbs, different types of herbs. Yeah, and they all tasted very bitter, but they were all very good for you. You know, because they were very good for you. So we didn't have a lot of vegetables, but you know, maybe we ate brinjal. We ate a lot of bitter gourd. I remember.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we ate a lot of bitter
My
gourd.
mom's favorite vegetable.
Yeah, no, that's something. And you know, it's only the older generation that let's eat bitter gourd. Young generation, I don't like it. But that's the difference. That's the difference there, right? And we would eat, I would say, in terms of protein, we have chicken maybe once a week, maybe, yeah. Fish every day, 4-5 times a day. Pork more often than chicken. Beef very rare, maybe once every month, maybe twice every month. Mutton the same, once or twice every month. So you look at that, right? Fish.
It's a very light.
It is not that we eat beef, we eat pork every day. No, we eat a lot of fish and vegetables. I still remember, you know, excuse me, 4 times a week we had fish. Whether it was fried, whether it was in a gravy, whether it was steamed, that's what we ate. So, were they fat people when I was growing up as a young boy? Hardly. Really, hardly, you know. In school, I would say maybe 2 in 3 in the whole school. That's very rare today, you know. If you go to school today, I think you see more than 3 in the whole school, right? Yeah. So you know, you want to say that we were unhealthy when we were younger. I disagree. I really disagree.
I think it's because we are using our modern
Context,
eyes,
yeah.
to view the history.
Of course, you know, because we don't know what we ate in the past, right? Yeah, obviously, you know, that's for sure. But yeah, so like all the other ethnicities, right? I hate to say this, but I think we have digressed. We have, you know, from what we ate today. And is hawker food healthy? Not all of it, you know. Some of it, yeah, but not all of it.
When people talk about being healthy and eating hawker food every day, and they don't prep their own meal, I would often ask them, like, do you know what's in your food then? Because I'm not a gym bro, but recently I just started going for food.
Yeah.
And I started to cook a little bit.
Right.
And I realized that although it's very tedious for cooking every day, because when I cook, you have to wash up and all the stuff that comes along with it. It also feels you need to know what's going in your food, and we are putting our knowing what's going in our food to someone else.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say yes. You know, there's some hawker food out there that's healthy, but who's to know, right? Even if even we eat instant noodles every day, that's not healthy.
Yeah.
So you know, so what is healthy? You know, like you said, right? If you really watch your nutrition, if you really watch your intake, you take X grams of protein a day. You know, no starch, vegetables, yeah. But then, you know, it's kind of boring, right?
Yes.
You know,
it's a very tedious process.
Yeah. So I think balance is very good, like what we used to do when we were younger. I believe we had 2 meals a day. Like I say, sometimes we only had 1, but most of the times we had 2 meals a day. So we would eat a really heavy breakfast, and then we have dinner. And dinner usually was like early, maybe about 6:30. Yeah. And then wait till the next day, you know. So 2 meals a day is It's common. Today, yes, there are people, most of us eat 3 meals a day. Breakfast maybe not so heavy. It's difficult to see whether heavy or not. You go to the hawker center in the morning, you look at what people eat. They eat kueh chap, they eat bak chor mee, they eat nasi lemak, they eat wonton mee, they eat mee rebus, they eat Malay rice. So,
It's
and then,
very real.
yeah, and then lunch, they probably are eating the same thing. And then dinner, they're eating the same thing. So, it's very difficult to put a finger on what is healthy and what is not unless you pay careful attention to what you put into your mouth.
I used to eat just 1 meal a day for a couple of months when I used to be very heavy. Then I shed quite a huge weight on my own. So and one of the things I did is to eat 1 meal a day.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how good that meal is until I ate it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So although I ate nasi lemak almost every night,
Yeah.
but it was that one meal that I look forward to.
Yeah.
With the modern nice lemak. It's from a hawker center, right?
Yeah.
So it's although it's very heavy, but I was very satisfied at the end because it's something that I would look forward to at the end of the day. It's like it's a long day of work. I woke up, there's no food. It becomes like a goal that I look forward to.
Yeah.
Is that the same when you were younger than when people are eating 1 meal a day?
Well, like I said, we usually ate 2 meals a day. Yeah. And I think 2 meals a day was sustenance because, whether we went to school or whether, we went to work, 2 meals was what we felt was sufficient for us. Even when we went to school, right, the pocket money that we had, it probably would buy us a very simple meal. But most of us actually didn't have that meal, But that was lunch, right? So when we went back, we didn't actually have lunch. We waited until dinner. Yeah. So 2 meals a day was kind of standard for us then. I still eat 1 or 2 meals a day. I don't have 3 meals a day. Yeah. Because I'm comfortable eating 1 or 2 meals a day. Yeah.
I want to ask you a little bit about yourself then, because I don't. There's a lot of articles about your food.
Yeah.
But I want to know who you are when you are younger, like you growing up as a child. What kind of character are you?
I was boisterous. I was a very, what's the right word? I couldn't keep still for long. I was very mischievous. Yeah. Always wanting to know what was happening. Always wanting, very inquisitive. So I think that was one of the reasons why I got into cooking, right? Because it showed me a world that I couldn't see anywhere else except what my grandfather, executed. Yes, there was a lot of work involved in it, but I also enjoyed actually assisting him because at the end of the day, I was rewarded. Not that I wanted to eat, but because of the flavors that were there. Yeah, it's very unique. Granddad did food that not many people executed. Now, this was a man that could cook Chinese, Malay, Indian, and Eurasian. So it was very rare to find someone like that, right? And ultimately, at the end of the day, I told myself, if I didn't learn from him, if he dies, then there's no one else that could actually teach me what he did. Because Mum cooked a very different style of food.
How does your mom cook?
My mum is Eurasian, I would say peranakan, because that was her mother's peranakan, but she married a Eurasian man. So but she cooks a lot more peranakan and Eurasian. Whereas my granddad is, like I say, Chinese, Malay, Indian, and Eurasian.
Okay. So there's a lot like elements of other.
Yeah, there are. I mean, I was exposed to all the different ethnicities, so I was very, very fortunate there.
Is your cooking, is cooking as a profession runs through your family?
No, I'm the only one that cooks, and I only went into it quite late in life, actually, in my late 30s. In my late 40s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure what's the right question to use, but how do you know?
I don't think anybody. Okay, so cooking was something that I always did, right? But I never saw myself as a chef. That wasn't what I wanted to do. So I would say that I found peace in cooking when I went away and cooked abroad. Right, it gave me a certain sense of peacefulness that I was trying to find for the longest time, and I didn't find it. And that was cooking actually, not local food, but was cooking Italian, was cooking Spanish, right? So that was abroad. And then after doing that, I came back. I started cooking European cuisine. I did it for about a year. Maybe a little bit more than a year, and then I realized that this is not what I wanted to do, because it's not my heritage, it's not what I grew up eating. So I decided to actually delve into a restaurant that did heritage cuisine.
That's where folklore and
My first restaurant was actually Citrine Chocolat. That's the European side. The first restaurant that I did heritage cuisine was Soul Kitchen in Purvis Street.
Okay.
Yeah. So after Soul Kitchen, I went and started Big D's. But before that, I also ran. I think I was probably one of the first people to start home chefs. Yeah, the company was called Rent a Chef, and I used to go and cook for people in their homes. I did a lot of events as well. So I would say Soul Kitchen, and then Rent a Chef, and then Big D's.
Okay.
Big D's was very different. We offered actually European and heritage food. Yeah. And after Big D's, immigrants. After immigrants, then folklore, and then kin, and then
Grandpapa. I want to ask. Okay, before we delve into your career side of things, you talk about finding peace in cooking.
Yeah.
How does it feels like finding peace? Like what's the what?
Well, it's like finding work that you realize, after a long time, that this is what, you want to do. There are many people out there, I think, who work and it's not what they want to do. So they don't get the peace, right? And I think when I started to cook, I realized that this is what I want to do, right? And of course, you tell yourself that, I should have done this a long time ago, because it definitely helps. But I don't think it really matters. The important thing is that you found your peace, you found what you want to do in your life.
What other jobs that you have done before?
Many. I was a broker, a stockbroker. I also work in the aviation industry. I design aeronautical tooling, and then I started cooking.
I just realized maybe it's the idea of creation and working with people that you found peace in cooking as well. Is there?
I won't say it's so much working with people. I think cooking was always in me. I was somehow, I think, that something had to happen in my life that re-engineered my thought process, and ask and question myself, okay, so what do you want to do? You're 40 years old. There has to be something that you want to do that is more, not about satisfaction, but more about, where it brings you, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, right, I think when you do something, you have to be happy. Then you can go into it every day, and the only time you can't do it is when your body tells you, okay, I can't carry, I can't move you anymore because I don't have the strength anymore, right? But other than that, mind you want to do because you're happy. And I think that's something that I only found out when I started to cook. Of course, when I started to cook European food, yes, I was happy. But at that time, I think it was more about me. It was very selfish, right? It took maybe about 5 or 6 years for me to understand that, hey, you don't cook for yourself, Damian. You cook for people. You make them happy because that is what you cook. You cook to make people happy. And it dawned on me when this was Soul Kitchen, I think, around about 2004, 2005.
Is it a conscious thing for that mindset to change though? Like, because
I don't think, no. I'm sure there are chefs out there, who cook and then eventually realize that this is not what I want to do. It's too tough, So I don't think it's conscious. I think it's at the back of your mind. You don't know it's there until it happens. Like I said, for me, the thing that made me realize and understand it was 2004. I think 2004. There was a lady that used to come to the restaurant, and I haven't seen her for about 2 years. And then when she came, I realized her husband spoke to me and says, hey, look, Rose has only got about 4 weeks to live. She's got cancer. And she specifically asked to come here. And I cooked. And she ate. And the husband came to me and said, Damian, she hasn't eaten for 6 months. So that gave me a sense of not so much satisfaction, but it taught me that how important it is to make people happy, to feed people, really, to feed people. And of course, there are people that come and eat and cook who won't be happy. That's how it is, right? You cannot cook for everybody's taste. But I think what's important that I always tell even my staff that when they cook, it has to come from the heart. And there are people, when they eat your food, they know it comes from the heart, right? So I think that's my that's how I do things, Every day, if I cook from the heart. I would never cook if I'm unhappy, never. And I know when I'm unhappy, I will not cook. I will wait. I will go and do something else until I come down or until, then I'll cook.
Until that burden off your head was...
Yes. Yes.
Here's this thing, right? Where, because you talk about your career as well, like it's... To me, it's like an amazing, like where it's going and where it has been. I want to ask, like, how hard is it to be a chef, or how hard is it to start from? Did you start from the bottom and goes up? Because being a because I'm thinking about the whole idea of like you have celebrity chef like Gordon Ramsay that we all know, and you have you and Beyond as well. And the other celebrity chef that I have with a very young impression is the guy with a tall head. Remember him coming up selling soy sauce. He's a Chinese guy that cooks and he smiles a lot.
Yeah.
So, what is it, and what is it like to be it's? I know that it's a very tough road to be a chef, but I could not wrap my head how tough it can be.
I think when it comes to work, I think irrespective of what you do, to put 110% into what you do is very difficult. You can be a salesman, you can be a banker, you can work in finance, you can be an insurance agent, you can sell houses, you can be a priest, right? I think what's important is to believe in what you do. I think that's the most important thing. If you do not believe in what you do, you can do anything, and you're not going to get any satisfaction from it. So the number one thing is to believe in what you do, right? And this is difficult because it takes a long time for people to accept what you do. So you have to have perseverance. You have to persevere, and the only way you can persevere is you have to believe in yourself. Then you can persevere, correct? And I started at the bottom as well. When I was abroad, I was peeling potatoes at 4 in the morning. I didn't sleep a lot. But I think everybody who's successful starts by working hard, right? I think working hard and luck come hand in hand. The harder you work, the luckier you get. That's how things work. Okay, so I would say, there are people out there who are more lucky than others. There obviously are. Then again, it also depends on your choice of cuisine. I have chosen a cuisine that is actually misunderstood a lot. It's not the best cuisine to go and start to cook, right? Because there's so many ifs, right? If you cook Chinese cuisine, an example, Cantonese,
Everyone has
exactly. You kind of know what Cantonese cuisine is, because even your mother is Cantonese at home. She will not cook like how a restaurant chef cooks Cantonese, right? Similarly, if you cook French, you cook Italian. So I've chosen something really, really difficult. I decided to take heritage cuisine, and this is a cuisine that every family cooks. Let's say I do a Teochew Ngoh Hiong, right? There are 300 other grandmothers and mothers out there that cook the same thing, right? So they're like, my grandmother also makes this. How come yours is different from my grandmother's? My grandmother puts yam. How come you don't put yam? That's, how come you use pangseh? My grandmother don't use pangseh. So it's difficult, right?
People question
all the time. They question me all the time. And it's something that I have accepted. I told myself I cannot please everybody. I can't, right? But the important thing is that I do things what I know is right from what I've been taught. Okay? I'm not the kind of guy that says my grandfather's chicken curry is the best. I go and try 10, 15 other people, and then because I have very good taste memory and my taste buds, I think, are pretty much impeccable, I can tell you whether or not your grandfather, your friend's grandfather, my friend's grandfather, which one is the best. Okay? And I'm a very honest person. I would even tell my grandfather when I eat something, hey, Pop, wow, this sambal prawns is much better than yours. And my grandfather is someone that would accept things like that. Because he says it's important that you know what is right and what is wrong, right? Most people, no, they protect their grandfather and their grandmother. They will, right? Even to the extent that it's not that good. Because I've been to homes that I have been invited to eat, right? And I tell you, it's okay. It's not really like, wow, it's so good. It's just okay. So it's very difficult. You know what I mean? That's why I say I've taken on a daunting task by cooking heritage cuisine.
I think it's also because it's one's identity. It's like why are you questioning my heritage, my past? Because my grandfather taught me this. Like it has it's one huge part of me that's.
I agree, but I think you to be fair, you need to open up your mind, right? And to open up the mind is to allow negativeness and positiveness to come in. That's the only way you can be true to yourself. So if you have all that negativeness with no positiveness, how can you be true to yourself? You can't.
I'm still trying to. I think being true to yourself is something that's very daunting and it's very difficult to. It's a very big concept to have. Everyone. I'm 30 years old, 32 right now, and I'm still trying to find out what does being true to oneself means.
Look in the mirror and ask that person in the mirror, do I know you? Right? And if you can say, I know you, that is you being true to yourself. And you have to be really honest about it. Because not many people can look in the mirror and say, I know you. Why? Because they're not honest. They give a different... I don't think it's anyone's fault. Most people want to say good about themselves. Very seldom you find people that tell you their faults.
No.
They tell you their faults not because they are afraid, but because they want you to know exactly who they are, so that you can be more honest with them, right? And they can speak to you in a manner where they look within your heart, not above your head, who you are, right? And I think that's important. When you speak to someone, you speak to the person who he is, rather than this version of what you think he is. Like when you talk to me now, right? You see, that's not what I want you to see. I want you to see who I am in my heart. How genuine I am. And the only way to say that is when I speak to you and I talk to you from my heart. That's it.
It's a skill that I'm learning. I'm trying to learn as well.
Sorry, Gary, it's not a skill, Gary. I'll be very honest with you. You just have to let go, right? There is no perfect person in this world. It doesn't exist, right? We all have issues with many things. And as we go on in life, we learn how to deal with them. And that's the most important thing, is to deal with, things that are, that make you...
uncomfortable?
No, not so much uncomfortable. That make you a person who you don't want to become. Right? So I think as you grow, what's important is to identify those things. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have the tendency to lie, right? And lying is something that is easy to do when you do it all the time, it becomes easier, right? So you start off lying, let's say in your teenage years, and before you know it in your 30s, you're still lying. Now you ask yourself, I really hate this. How do I stop it? So it's you. You got to go inside your head and you have to tell yourself. When you reach that stage, right, when you open your mouth, when someone asks you a question, you have to stop and you have to think, and he says, okay, I can't say this because this is not right. And that's the way to do it. That's the way to go within yourself and to tell yourself that this is something I don't want to do anymore because it doesn't help me as a person. And eventually, if the person that I'm talking to finds out about it, he's not going to believe me anymore.
Yeah.
And when the person doesn't believe you anymore, other people are not going to believe you anymore as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So I think it's the individual. It's difficult. There are a lot of things. It's like gambling, right? Or there's so many vices,
yeah.
right? So I think the important thing is to be true to yourself. Of course, it could be one vice that is very difficult for you to not do. Like for me, you ask me, I tell you now, it's drinking. I don't drink often, but I love that vice. When I really want to drink, I will drink. And sometimes I drink to the stage where I'm not drunk, but I'm really high, and that's when I tell myself, okay, enough. I stop. Right? In the past, when I was much younger, I would drink till, to the stage where there's no turning back, meaning I sometimes don't even know what happened during a certain period.
The blackout drunk.
I black out. I get blackouts. So I stopped. I told myself, I don't want to be like that anymore, right? So, everybody has to. I guess perhaps for me, it's because I've aged, and the things that I used to do in my youth, I don't do them anymore. And I think this is something, it's you grow, right? That's the important thing, which with every year that passes by, you tell yourself, I don't want to do this anymore because it doesn't make me a better person, it makes me worse, right? So you grow and then you become, and then eventually you find that, hey, I don't do a lot of things that I used to do that were bad in the past, And that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing, yeah. So
I used to drink a lot as well, so I'm not. I used to I'm not really, I don't want to self-diagnose as an alcoholic, but I used to drink a lot as well. And I'm not so sure the word relief is a good word to use when I realize that I have not drank for a long period of times. And I think it helps as well with your friends and family alongside with you celebrating in you. Maybe not the word, celebration is not the perfect word to use, but it's more like, hey, you're not drinking that much anymore, and you realize, hey, it's your loved ones that's there to support you as well, and things like that. So it's like, but I also think that it's to look yourself into the mirror and at whatever stage you are in your life, and able to pinpoint why you hate about that person in the mirror itself helps you to improve.
Yeah, it does. For sure it does. For sure it does. And I think that's something that we all need to do on a daily basis. There's some things that you can't rub off, right? And there's nothing wrong with it. But the things that hurt people, I think these are the things that you don't want to do, I think the Buddhists have got a wonderful saying, and this is something that I always try to remember, And the saying is that, what's the point of having a good heart if your mouth is foul?
Oh, yeah.
Which is so true. You have a good heart, but when you open your mouth, you say bad things. What's the point, right? Your heart is good, but your mouth says the bad thing. So I think before you even have a good heart, you gotta speak pure.
Here's this. But how do you formulate your criticism to make it into? I think we all have the best intentions for our friends and families. Sometimes we say out, we don't mean it intentions get being perceived as a different way. Some perceive as an attack. Some perceive as, hey, it's criticism. So as most of us just want to be honest as well. So I think that's where being nice, being good with our mouth and not being foul also it's a thing that we do not know how to work on, and I think that's something that we have to work on as well.
Okay,
As a
I think
human being.
what we need to do more than anything else, perhaps maybe, is to know who you're talking to,
No.
right? You have to be sensitive to the people that you're talking to. You have to know the person's character. There's some people that can accept you being true. There's some people that can't. So I think if you have this in mind when you speak to anyone, you have to be very mindful about their reaction. And that's why I always feel that talking to taxi drivers are really good. Because you're only going to speak to them during that journey, and they will listen to you, and they might also reply you, or they might talk to you and tell you their issues, and you can also speak to them, because they know in 10, 15 or 20 minutes time, he's going to go off and I'm going to forget about him, he's going to forget about me, right? But if you want to say something to someone, whether or not to give him, to give him advice, I think it's always important to know how that person is going to react. How well do you know that person? Is he close to you? Is he a colleague? How sensitive he is? And you have to be very careful about the words that you use, right? There's always waters you can test, right? What's important is that you are honest with him. I think people can see honesty. People can see that, you want, when you speak to them, you want good for them. They can see that, right? They can see in your eyes, and they can see that it comes from the heart. And sometimes when you speak to someone like that, they get comfortable in, like, they feel that, okay, this is someone that's really trying to help me, not someone who wants to attack me, but someone who wants to help me. There are some people that would allow you for you to help them. There's some people that are private, and they might say, no, I don't want to talk about it. And you can't push things like this. If somebody doesn't want to talk about it, then he doesn't want to talk about it, or she doesn't want to talk about it. So, I don't know. I'm very mindful when I speak to someone. Even when it's the first time I met the person, I'm always very mindful. But I always speak my mind as well when it's something that is not directly, it doesn't affect the person directly. So I speak my mind.
I think a lot of people appreciate, or at least I'm the one who appreciate when people speak honestly. But it also screws. I also got screwed in my head in that saying, like, there's this fear in me, like, what happens if that person is not being honest, in a sense where either they are being too nice, or either they are, like, being too at the other end of the spectrum as well. So it's like, okay, how do I manage this idea, right? I read on the Rob's report. I'm going to bring in a little bit story because I read this story that you have, where you were a very different chef when you were younger.
Yeah, I was.
You were, like, screaming.
I was a very because I was a perfectionist.
Wow.
And anybody that didn't appreciate what I did, I didn't have any time for them. I would tell them, because people would come and expect to be fed in 15 minutes. And I would go out in the restaurant and tell them, McDonald's is just across the road. Can you please just go there? And I won't feed them. And the people that come and I say, oh no, please don't come to the restaurant anymore. And then I realized that it's not something that's right. It's not right because who knows, that person probably might have had a bad day. And you are in the hospitality business. And if you understand the word hospitality, it means to be able to be hospitable, right? To take the person, into your company and treat him in a manner to make him feel special. He's had a rough day. Whatever happens, you try and calm him down. I know it's very difficult to do. It takes a certain quality in, a person to be able to calm someone who's angry. But I've seen it. I've calmed people down who've angry, who've come in, stood in the restaurant for like 5 minutes, nobody pays attention to them, and then, they blow up, and then you go and you calm them down, right? Because that's the right thing to do, But when I first started, I wasn't like that. I was like, do you want to eat? Then you wait. If you can't wait, I think I was very European. Because I I was taught, in restaurants that I work, the chef is king. Yeah. This is how I do things. If you don't like it, go somewhere else and eat, right? And then I realized that my mother would never do that. My grandfather would never do that. My mother would tell you, if you don't want to eat, don't eat. Yes, but she won't drive you out from the table, right? And then eventually, you would eat whatever you think that you don't like, right? So it grows on you. So I became a little bit more understanding of people's feelings, and it has helped me. It has helped me to become, I would say, more understanding towards people and their choice and their choices. To be able to differentiate when someone walks in, right? Whether or not this person knows what you do or doesn't know what you do. Some people, when they walk in, that he knows what to order. You don't have to ask him any question. He's not going to ask. He knows what he wants. There's some people that come in and don't know what you do, and they need help. And they don't want to be told in a manner where it's condescending. Like when you come in, as an example, right? They feel that you speak to them in a manner like you don't know what the chef does. Why are you even coming here? You don't want them to feel that way. You want them to be able to, to feel that, yes, I don't know what you do, but thank you very much for educating me. I'm very happy, and you can rest assured that I'm going to come back again. And that's hospitality. That's what you want to do, right? So I've kind of like, pass that message to my front of house, and they make sure that the hospitality is passed on to most people. So today, we don't have that issue anymore, there are people that come and still look at me and think I'm intimidating. That is my look. Very seldom do I smile, but that's my nature. Yeah. Right? A lot of people tend to know me better when they speak to me personally. Then they find that actually it's not that fierce. I don't think I am fierce. It's just who I am. I think it's because I am a no-nonsense chef. That's why I am what I am. When I do something, hey, look, we don't play around here. We do things right. You know what I mean? And that's it. That's how I come across to a lot of people. That he's intimidating and he's really fierce. But actually, it's because of my character. I do things right. I do things not just right. I'm a perfectionist.
Yeah, I understand. I think it's also. I think as an outsider point of view, walking into a new restaurant can be daunting as well. Yeah. So it can be like, I do not know what this restaurant represents. I do not know what food they give. I think it's also, that's why a lot of people, you're not walking into McDonald's. We all know what McDonald's bring.
Yeah, so how you want to approach it is to approach it in a manner where you don't sound as though you're putting that person down, right? what you want to do more than anything else is to introduce your menu, your food in a manner where the person feels comfortable to ask you the right question, because you're not putting him down. You know, you're trying to create a conversation. And I think that's the approach that we use today.
I think that's a good way to end
Okay.
the podcast.
Okay.
It's very nice knowing you. I have maybe one last question, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm not so sure whether this is a good question to ask, but the festive season is coming, right?
Yeah.
Then the Chinese New Year is coming as well.
Yeah.
It's very close. Is there like a good food recipe that if I am inviting a group of friends? Which would be a good dish to end off
I'll
with?
be very honest with you, Gary. It doesn't matter. Do anything. The important thing is that you cook from your heart.
Yeah.
It could be Chinese, it could be Malay, it could be anything, but it comes from your heart, right? And I think that's what's important. Yeah, it's a festive dish, right? So when you think about festive dish, you think about something. I want to say impressed, but I don't think that's what you want to do. I think you want to have your friends come. More importantly, to sit around, to have conversations. Don't look at food as the important element when it comes to festivities. The important element is having your friends around with you, because that's the number one thing. These are the people that have been close to you, who know you, who can take whatever shit you give to them, because they know who you are at the end of the day, right? So what's important is that you have invited them and they are at your home, right? That's the number one thing. The food is secondary. So you do whatever you think your friends like. It's not about you. Remember, it's never about you. It's what your friends want to eat. So it could be a simple dish that you cooked a long time ago, or your mom cooked a long time ago, and you like, okay, James likes to eat this as an example, and you cook that dish. So that when he comes, right, he's like, hey, Gary, you cooked this for me. Hey, thank you very much. That is cooking from the heart. It's about cooking things. It's about memory, right? Because it's festive. And I always feel that anything that's festive, you have to put some remembrance into it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's about your granddad or your grandmother cooking, which you can do for them, and you can tell them, okay, this is my grandmother's dish, and it brings memory of her to this season, because I've not seen her in a long time. Right?
It's cooking with love, I guess.
I think so, but when you cook with heart, the love is already there.
Okay. I think that's a good way to end the episode. Thank you for doing this.
You're very welcome. Very welcome.
I learned a lot today.
Very welcome.